Good morning everyone and welcome to a very sunny Thursday morning. I would have liked to have been outside today, but it was a bit windy for filming, so I'm in here instead. It's lovely to have you with us this morning, and our reading today comes from 1 John chapter 4 and it's verses 1 to 6. We've been going through 1 John as an admin team in our meetings on Zoom, and John has a fantastic way of talking so poetically and beautifully, but also being very direct, very blunt, and cutting through all the rubbish. So this is a particularly direct and full passage, so I wonder what you make of this. 1 John chapter 4, verses 1 to 6. Dear friends, do not believe everyone who claims to speak to you by the Spirit. You must test them to see if the Spirit they have comes from God. For there are many false prophets in the world. This is how we know if they have the Spirit of God. If a person claiming to be a prophet acknowledges that Jesus Christ came in a real body, that person has the Spirit of God. But if someone claims to be a prophet and does not acknowledge the truth about Jesus, that person is not from God. Such person has the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard is coming into the world and indeed is already here. But you belong to God, my dear children. You have already won a victory over those people, because the Spirit who lives in you is greater than the spirit that lives in the world. Those people belong to this world, so they speak from the world's viewpoint and the world listens to them. But we belong to God, and those who know God listen to us. If they do not belong to God, they do not listen to us. That is how we know if someone has the spirit of truth or the spirit of deception. So there you go. Very cutting, very direct, and very full on. I'm sure you'll agree. And it could probably do with a lot more study than I've given it for a small thought for the day. But for me, reflecting on this, it's a gentle and challenging reminder to test what comes from the Holy Spirit and what comes from elsewhere. It reminded me of a verse in Ephesians 6 as well that says, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." And so it is important to remember when we think about this that chiefly we're not against human might and human efforts, but against the supernatural things, the things that we can't see, the spiritual things that are at work. And of course this is what John is talking about here. People often come and claim that God has told them to do a certain thing, which maybe from the outside doesn't seem like it is God. God can sort of tell people to do any number of things, and we hear stories of murderers claiming that God told them to commit that act, or sects of Christianity that break off because God gave them a vision of an alternative gospel where Jesus is presented very differently. John simply here, but very challengingly, reminds his readers and us today to test everything. Leaders or prophets need to be constantly tested and consistently tested to ensure what they're saying is truly from the Holy Spirit, from God's Spirit. And we need to make sure that we not only test them effectively, but are not led astray by false prophets or leaders or teachers. And so I'm sure many more things could be said. I would actually quite like to study this, and maybe I probably should. But I thought I would share that with you today, what challenged me this morning. Thank you for watching, and I'm sure we'll see you soon. Have a wonderful day in the wonderful weather outside. See ya.